What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down why on earth I do expect some downside to come for NIO. I want to warn everyone in advance about that. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a big day because Jerome Powell himself is going to be talking. So I'm not trying to exaggerate when I say tomorrow is going to be a big day. I mean it because what Jerome Powell says will not just affect the stock market and other markets, but what he says will give us many hints about what the Fed's future monetary policies are going to be. Why did the stock market crash the way it did in 2022? Because the Fed was raising the federal funds rate amidst the higher inflationary levels. So they play a big role in how the market performs. They affect unemployment in America, which we are going to start to see trend up very soon. We're already starting to see more layoffs from companies like Amazon and also, I think, Goldman Sachs and many big banks. So we're seeing the effects of the Fed's policies playing out. So it's going to be very important to know what the Fed plans on doing for 2023. And I believe what Jerome Powell says will heavily affect all of us. That's why it's going to be very important. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the market and also other important factors for NIO. But before I do that, let me mention a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below. Deposit any amount of money into the account. You're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just a week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NIO was up 3.76% for the day, and we actually did something very interesting. So remember how I told you guys, NIO had this gap, this big gap that formed, right? This formed on, I think it was Friday, and that was because of the Tesla news. Tesla was cutting their prices, so NIO, the entire EV sector, gapped down before getting a big bounce as SPY rallied. And then I told you guys I expect this gap to get filled. Well, what happened today was NIO gapped up. We actually gapped up instead, and we continued to push. So we did go to the area I mentioned. That's a push above 10.8, fighting for 11 and actually breaking above that. So NIO went almost exactly where I thought it would, but something that wasn't as great ended up happening. That is, NIO ended up breaking down as time went on, and it broke below 10.8, which means that the support did not hold us. Okay, and that's very important because when the support didn't hold us up, we ended up seeing NIO start to push down. And you could see now NIO has two gaps in a row. That's going to be very important now because when you have two gaps like this, we most definitely will fill the gap in that case. So we still have to fill this part of the gap to the left right here where my cursor is. And then we have the second gap right over here. So it's two gaps, it's a double gap. I believe NIO is going to come all the way down to fill it. And once NIO fills this gap, are we going to form possible inverse head and shoulders? Are we about to do like left shoulder? This could be the head right here and then the right shoulder. Or are we going to continue to come down? It could go either way, but I think it's very likely it's going to come all the way down, maybe retest $10. Maybe go lower. If it breaks below 10, there is a possibility we could retest this 9.5 area. But I do believe it's going to head for $10. I'm going to show you exactly why. So Jerome Powell is speaking once again on Tuesday, 30 minutes before the market opens. And when he talks, the whole market can move. I predict he's going to be more hawkish, and I'm going to show you why the charts suggest that. I think he's going to be a little bit more hawkish. I think that he's going to be uncertain about lots of things, but he will say some things that are a little bit more hawkish, and it's going to cause the market to most likely come down. I say that because he doesn't really have a reason to be dovish. And I think that when he talks, the market is more likely to come down than go up. So despite that, I just want to note that NIO is still a great company with lots of power swapping innovations. And in terms of price action, our volume was 42 million for the day, which is just a little bit below average, pretty much close to average. And on top of that, we can also see we got a nice push up on the price, the short volume percentage, which means we did see a little bit more shorting very recently. However, I do expect this to kind of trade sideways for some time. If NIO comes down, this could pop a little bit, so be very careful there. The overall short interest came up just a little bit, but besides that, NIO still has a relatively low price pairs ratio. It did try to bounce, like I mentioned, but it's kind of hanging out down here. I do expect it to stay around there, so I don't expect crazy volatility from NIO yet, unless there's some big piece of news. Now, I don't really see a major piece of news coming. I think NIO is going to likely start to fill this gap, which means NIO should drop to at least 10.3, maybe go as low as $10 tomorrow, guys, or within the next 2 days. And if it breaks below 10, it could go even lower, so be very careful there. But let me actually show you why I think that by looking at the SPY. What does the SPY tell us? Well, I mentioned a couple of days ago, not a couple of days ago, many weeks ago actually, that we had this divergence on SPY. It's actually, let me see, right here. Here it is. So what is this telling us? You will notice that on SPY, we formed this lower low. MACD was not doing that. RSI actually formed a higher low. So there's a divergence right here. This told me that 374 was likely the bottom and we would continue to see the market push up. And then I predicted yesterday, if you guys watched my video yesterday, I predicted SPY would hit between 393 and 395. And I predicted it would happen sometime this week, maybe during the earlier days. And I thought it could actually break above 390. If it did, then 393 could come for today. That was my prediction yesterday. We ended up peaking at 393.7, but what I didn't predict was us coming back down and kind of showing some weakness, because on the MACD, we're starting to see it close and we're actually starting to see weakened momentum, at least from today alone. So that's not the best of signs. I think we did not see as many buyers kind of coming in and in anticipation of Powell speaking. That's why the market is very cautious. Now, what else I want to note is the fact that we have this very interesting pattern on SPY. Notice how we kind of got a bounce. We pushed up to almost 388. We came crashing down. We touched the trend line at 374. We bounce, touch the trend line, bounce, touch the trend line, bounce, touch the trend line, bounce. Are we about to touch the trend line again? That is possible, guys. And if anything could cause the market to come down to retouch this trend line in the low 380s, it would be Jerome Powell. He really could cause the market to move. So what I think is going to happen is this. I think that if Powell comes out, which I think he will, and I think he's going to be more hawkish, right? If he comes out more hawkish, the market will likely drop. And when the market drops, I think SPY is going to retest this like trend line area around here, like right here. And if we break below this like really hard, then we could drop even lower. So the two possibilities I see is we either kind of bounce around the trend line 385, and if we do come down really hard, there is a chance if we're dropping approaching CPI, there's a increased possibility and increased probability that we're going to see us bounce after CPI comes. I'm not going to worry too much about the bounce though. I'm more focused on this move. Or what could happen is maybe we don't hold this wedge, the top of the wedge, and we just break down to retest the bottom. See the bottom that we kept ping-ponging off of? We could touch it again, and that would take us to like the low 380s, 381 to 382. That is very possible over the next 2 days. So one of these will likely play out, okay? And then on the QQQ, my target was a break above 270, 274 to 275 on QQQ. We ended up peaking at 275.29. But notice on the QQQ, there's a gap that has not been filled. We're going to likely break below 269.8. Break below that, we're going to fill the gap most likely on the QQQ, the NASDAQ. And we're going to continue to come down. We're probably going to retest the 20 moving average on the hourly chart, hitting 267 or so, maybe lower. So I do expect the QQQ to likely come down a bit. It will likely be dragged down, in my opinion, by Apple and also Tesla. I also say that because Apple did not fully fill its gap yet. Or I think it did fill its gap, or at least it came very close to doing so. But if you look at the formation on Apple, you could draw out a Fibonacci retracement, and we could actually look at it like this. And you'll notice that a key level to retrace to would be 128 and 126, which is where the 0.786 is. If this thing gets dragged down or wants to retest the 20 moving average on the hourly, we could see 128 on Apple or even lower. It is possible. For Tesla, we have the big gap that has not been filled. I mean, if Tesla starts coming down, if it breaks below support and now around 117, it's going to easily fill the gap and crash to 113. And please mind me if I use the word crash. That's subjective, obviously. But my point is, if Tesla's going to come down like that, it's probably going to be correlated with NIO coming down, in my opinion. What's going to trigger us to come down starting tomorrow, maybe even a part of Wednesday? Well, what's the biggest catalyst tomorrow? Jerome Powell speaking. So to me, the charts from a technical standpoint suggest we're going to see NIO come down. We're going to see Tesla come down. We're going to see the market come down. Why? Because Powell may say something hawkish. I don't want to put words in his mouth and say exactly what he will say, but I will say that there's an increased probability of him saying something that causes the market to drop. So anyways, guys, that's what I'm suggesting, and this is what my charts are telling me. NIO will likely come down to about 10.3-ish, the 10.3 zone, and we could break below that if the market keeps dropping. And NIO could come all the way back down to 10, in my opinion. We need to see it hold. If it fails to hold 10, man, it's not going to be pretty. Then you have 9.7 and 9.5. So watch those zones very carefully. We have bounced off 9.5 like 3 times in a row. So we had one bounce, push up, second bounce, push up. Are we going to bounce off of it a fourth time? I don't truly know, but it is possible. And it's going to be easier to tell if once we see how this thing reacts, if it does get near $10, that's where I think it's going to go. And I'm going to be more conservative with my estimate. I don't want to talk about NIO crashing to 9 or 8 or anything like that right now. I just think we're going to fill the gap to around 10.3 and see $10 very, very soon. Now, also remember, as impactful as Jerome Powell's words could be, and technicals are, and they are suggesting downside, another factor I can't always account for is the news. Sometimes big pieces of news come out that you least expect and they can cause a different move. But as of right now, I'm not seeing a big piece of news that will really shift how NIO moves. So for the time being, my main prediction is this coming down. Anyways, thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. Stay safe. Remain incredible. And I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.